Welcome to Unsilent with your hosts Dave and Brian. This is not another current events podcast. We are digging deeper, diagnosing, and discussing what's really going on today, how we got here, and providing observations for future generations.
Welcome to Unsilent. We're Brian and Dave. We'd love to hear where you think we got it right and where you think we got it wrong. You can do that by visiting unsilentpodcast.com, visit Rumble and leave a comment there, or on any one of the various social media channels where America comes to give each other a great big hug. So, speaking of great big hugs, there's lots of turmoil in the world these days. What's caught your eye this week, Brian?
Well, I want to start off with this. I think it's pretty funny. We'll see if anybody else thinks it's funny. But I think it's pretty funny. It's this. This was a Canadian. This is only like a 20-second clip or something like that. But it's. I think she's in Canada, and here is a little snippet of one of her speeches here recently. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but I thought it was pretty fascinating. We'll hear it. We'll hear the wisdom she has to share with us. Let's see here. Who this is from? I don't know who that is, but I'm pretty sure she's Canadian. So here we go.
Deal with the ongoing genocide of MMIWG.
Sorry.
Deal with the ongoing genocide of MMIWG2SLGBTQIA+. This is abhorrent.
Did you catch all that? I'm gonna listen to it again because there's so many characters in her thing here. I lose track of them all. So let's try one more time here. See if you can keep track of all the letters, Dave.
I'll deal
with the ongoing genocide of MMIWG2SLGBTQIA+. This is abhorrent.
The phrase is abhorrent. The phrase is abhorrent.
What? I think I know the answer, but why is it so important for people to lump people in the group? Why is this grouping so like we have to protect this community and versus this community's needs are being unfairly dismissed compared to that community? Like what is driving all this? I think it's tribalism, obviously, but what's the deal?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is tribalism on one side, and what drives tribalism? What drives tribalism is one. I mean, so take it. There's a number of channels there. So there's money because you can make money off of every one of those letters. Because I represent you. You're the. One was like, what was it? Missing Indigenous women or something.
Yeah, it's like missing in something Indigenous women, and then a whole bunch of stuff after that.
Except I'm very offended that she didn't start off with an acknowledgement that the land she was standing on was stolen land too. So that's actually very.
She may have. Again, that was just a snippet. We don't know. She might have.
So there's one, there's the ability to make money. Number two, there's the ability to say, or the need to say that we're righteous. We are the righteous ones. You are the unrighteous. But we are the righteous ones, and so therefore we can feel good about ourselves. And the weird stuff that we do, and the stupid stuff that we do, and the selfish and bad things that we do are not all that important because we didn't cause somebody to go missing, or any one of the various and sundry letters and pluses and minuses and divided by ampersands and such. I really want to hear somebody use ampersand in one of those because it's just such a great ampersand.
We do. Like, we need to kick it up a notch, so to speak. Using Emeril Lagasse phrase, we need to kick it up a notch.
We do. I think that would be important. That would be the next kind of step evolution in this.
And by the way, like, this is just an example, but I in no way mean to indicate that like it's just that group doing it. You can look at any group. It's the trend nowadays. Like you have to identify with a group.
And ultimately, to one extent or another, it's always been the trend because, it's much, much, much more so today than in the past. But the more you can divide people, and the more you can segment them and say, "You're my people, you're my community." For years it was like people would say, "Well, I'm supportive of my community." Well, what's your community? I mean, it used to be my community was like the Parkland Spanway area where I'm sitting.
Now my community, like neighborhood, city, county, state, United States. Like it used to be. And by the way, prior to, I don't know, 2007, 2008, 2010, somewhere in there, um it was the exact opposite trend. All the political speeches about unifying us as Americans. It was
Right.
always about that and what's best for us as America. Like that was always, like, any political debate you watched, that was the underlying direction they were trying to get people on board with, or they were following the people who wanted to get on board with
Sure.
that idea. And somewhere around 2008, 2010, we did a 180, and it became like this hierarchy of groups had to become the thing. And um part of me is like, okay, I get it. You don't want to have people who are just like being abused. Like nobody wants to just
Sure.
ignore the Uyghurs forever. I
Yeah,
get that,
of
but
course.
man, there's gotta be some balance. Holy smokes.
Well, in when people realized that there was power and money associated with being a victim, then
Yeah.
you're going to try and accumulate as much power. I mean, power and money is what people, want. That's what politicians want. That's what anybody who gives speeches,
Yeah.
they want power and money. And so therefore, if you can, segment yourself and be either supportive of or part of a group that is a victim group, then that's where you're going to get it. That's where you're going to get your power.
Yeah.
That's where you get your money.
I would also throw status in there. I think
Sure.
status is similar to power, but it's a
Yeah.
little bit different. Yeah. Anyhow, I don't want to spend too much time on that. So in the world at large, depending on which quarter hour you're looking at, either the war is over, we've won, or we're gearing up for the real deal. Like, can you make sense of any of this stuff? I can't make sense of it. I
No.
I actually was gonna I saw somebody do a timeline showing tweet by tweet, like how the messaging, and it was so long, over like a 7-day period, and each tweet contradicted like the one directly previous to that, or one a couple ago. Like it's all over the place. What do you make of it?
It's 100% all over the place, and they're trying to think of it. It seems to me that that the dominant, the president and his folks are trying to essentially just keep the narrative alive that we're winning, we're winning, we're winning, we're winning. And I mean, this most recent one is clever. We're blockading the strait. It was the
We can't
Iranians.
blockade. We're gonna blockade.
We're gonna blockade it. So we're blocked. So we can't open the strait because there's a whole hundreds of miles of places where you can hide missiles, and one missile that happens to get through that sinks an aircraft carrier, and you're talking hundreds of billions of dollars at the bottom of the Persian Gulf, or oil tankers, et cetera. Oil is up to 200 at that point. So since we can't open the strait, somebody said, I'm sure it's like, in a meeting, somebody said, "Hey, what if we blockaded the strait? Wouldn't that be? Yeah, we'll blockade the strait, and then we'll claim that we won." So no, there's no there's no sense in any of it. The only thing that we gotta have a continual narrative so that oil doesn't get too high. That's the thing. We gotta have a narrative so that oil doesn't get to $150 a barrel. That's where we're at. I mean, that's the whole thing.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that specifically. I didn't say this. I can't read it verbatim, but somebody was I thought a guy made a pretty good point. I don't remember who it was, so I can't even give them credit for coming up with this idea. But I thought it was a really solid point. When you're at war with somebody, another country, you're like, arguably your sole mission is to exploit their vulnerabilities.
Right. Sure.
Now, typically we think of that like guns and battleships and all that kind of stuff. But if you look at what is America's industry now, like in the old days, like let's go back 150 years. If you wanted to crush America, you just set fire to all the farming fields. Like you just starve them out.
Yeah.
Right. If you look at maybe 100 years ago, you would destroy, or in the 40s, you would destroy all the manufacturing.
Yeah.
Right. Well, what's the industry now? What is the linchpin industry of the United States today, you think?
Well, probably the media and internet. I mean,
yeah, this guy's argument was it was finance. Now, whether you consider
Right.
it banking, whether you consider it Walmart or Wall Street, like
Sure.
the big corporate, like his argument was it was finance.
Sure, I can see that. I mean, that's
So
sure.
Yeah, I can whether he's right or not, it's in the top three for sure.
Sure.
And if you wanted to say like if you wanted to identify a weakness for us, it would be the financial structure because we're a debt-based economy. We
Oh,
borrow money from
totally.
everyone else. That there's many reasons why you could support that idea. So his theory was Iran is not really it's not necessarily for them to fight what's the word that they use for like people exchanging gunfire
Kinetic.
kinetic war. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't have to be their strategy.
Right.
They know that Trump is going to cave if the stock market falls 5%.
Exactly. Yep.
Full stop.
Totally.
That is like you can launch all the missiles you want. All we got to do is get the stock market to drive 5%. And he's going to cry uncle, just like he did last year. That's where the taco phrase has come from and all this kind of stuff. It's all about the markets.
Sure.
Now,
Sure it is.
so if you're Iran, you don't have to play a kinetic war with us. You probably would lose that, even though they have advantages as far as terrain and the landscape, and they're
Sure.
Whatever. Just like the Vietnamese did when we were over there, and they had their tunnel system, and
Yep.
Japanese did. Like they have home field advantage based on their terrain.
Absolutely.
Even with that, we probably would win a kinetic war, even if we didn't go the nuclear option.
Sure.
A pretty good chance we would. It would be not very fun, but we would win.
Right.
They don't have to do that.
Right.
They can just get the stock market to fall 22% and it's game over.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they only need to do that with a few commodities too. I mean, so
Right.
it's really just, oil is the base commodity for all other commodities. I mean, we're talking now food because oil is the base commodity behind fertilizer, which is where food's coming from. Because, without fertilizer, you're not going to grow enough food to feed everybody. It's what's behind our cars. It's behind all of that. So they really do hold a very good position in that regard. And it's also one of those things where we don't even know they might not have any missiles left near the Strait of Hormuz. We just don't know.
Right.
We just have no idea. And how are you even going to find that out? We don't have the technology to be able to scan every square inch of where you can hide a shoulder launched, rocket propelled grenade.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were talking earlier about the somewhere in a meeting, somewhere in a very prestigious part of Washington, D.C., somebody said, well, let's just blockade the blockade, right? And as they announced this, like a year ago, I was extremely harsh on progressives for acting like toddlers. But to me, it just seemed like a toddler thing to do. Well, you can't take away your ball. I'll take away my ball.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly where we're at. No,
So my question for you is, it comes back always to these two things. Is it negligence or incompetence? Don't know which it is.
Yeah, and I'm very fond of saying it's both. It's both negligence and it's incompetence. I mean, how they didn't. I still am baffled that the administration didn't understand how far the Iranians would go and how obvious a tactic this was. I just don't get how they didn't understand that. But
we're talking this civilization goes back 1,000 years before Xerxes.
Right.
They've been around a while.
They've been around a while. They know. Yeah, exactly. And it's fascinating to me as well that if you think about all they have to, they really don't have to do anything. They don't have to endure. They just, in fact, quick pop quiz. Who's the leader of Iran?
Well, it depends on who you ask. It's
I don't know.
The supreme leader, or it's the whoever's in charge of the IRGC now, or it's the mullahs.
We don't know. But my point is, we don't know. We don't even know who the leader of Iran is. So, and the reason I answered your previous question about, well, what's America's main, industry, it's media, because the entire game, it seems, that the administration is playing is a media game. It's just, we're winning, and every day it's like, if they don't do what we want, we're going to crush them. And that was the same thing that was a week ago. Civilizations, what happened to civilization ending? Where did that go? I mean,
that was about 63 tweets ago. Like
tweets ago. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just hard to, And now the question is, where does it go from here? Is there any way out? Is there, and what I fear is no, there really isn't any way out, because what will end up happening is, if this goes on into, say, June, right? So June is when the election season heats up. That's, that's when it's going to heat up. And if Trump loses enough seats, if he loses the Senate, let's put it this way, if he loses the Senate, there's a really good chance he'll be behind bars in not too long.
Yep.
I mean, literally behind bars.
Yeah.
Because, the House will, there's no doubt that the House will, first thing the House does is they impeach him. I mean, it's like, we'll just roll out the imperial, just brush up, get some white out, change the dates from the previous impeachments, put the new dates on it. But if the Senate gets it, and the Senate has a majority this time, they're going to impeach him. They will remove him from office this time. And then he'll be behind bars. 100%. And then what happens?
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I don't know if we have until June, because the oil's futures contract rolls over in about a week.
Oh, okay.
From May to June. Well, the June futures are priced at about $140 a barrel as of a few days ago, or $147 a barrel, somewhere there, while the May futures were being suppressed, some say because the U.S. Treasury is shorting that, keeping the price down. Well, when the futures roll, we will have $150 barrel oil.
Yeah.
And I don't understand most of the stuff, but the physical price oil is trading at is well north of the futures, which is what everybody's looking at. And so they got about 7 days until financially the shit hits the fan, and bad things are going to happen. And then we roll into election season. And if we go to, I have a picture saved of, $9.99 for Supreme gas in California. It was out in the middle of nowhere somewhere, like Death Valley probably, or something like that.
Sure,
nowhere, 50 miles away from the nearest gas station.
Yeah.
But physically the number can't tick 1 cent higher on the machine because of the analog readout.
Well, good. Let's install analog pumps back everywhere so we can at least keep gas prices under control, right? Yeah.
I'm sure they'll have a fix for that. But anyhow, I don't know. Again, depending on who you listen to, some say we're at the end of a 47-year nightmarish reign with Iran, and others say we're at the beginning of World War III, and who knows what's going on.
Right, and who knows at this point?
Yeah. But I would say that wasn't the biggest story of the week, because not a lot happened. We had the ceasefire, and it's been a series of conflicting tweets, and nobody really knows what's happening. So I don't think that's the big story this week. The big story this week, it seems to me, is the Eric Swallwell thing. Have you been paying attention to that?
Oh my gosh, the guy is just like a serial rapist or something. It's just insane.
Right. So he the prevailing story is, as far as I can gather, the story that's not being publicized is that California has a system where the top 2 vote getters go to the final election.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter the party. So most states, it's the top Republican and the top Democrat, and if there's a independent that ranks high enough, then you would have 3 or whatever. But California's not like that. California, it's almost always 2 Democrats. Some, whatever. But theoretically, it could be 2 Republicans or a Democrat or Republican. The party doesn't matter.
Right.
The Republicans are doing well enough. This is a story that is being circulated that was happening behind the scenes. The Republicans are doing well enough that Swalwell was taking too many votes away from, I'm guessing, the guy that they want to win, the billionaire whose immigration policy is way to the left of Gavin Newsom.
Right.
He wants to just give away everything, right?
Right.
So they told Swalwell to step down, and he said no. And so then the political machine released all this information that they already had, obviously.
Sure.
They didn't discover the stuff last Thursday.
Oh yeah, right. Right.
So the story that's fascinating to me, to tell Kenny G, who the people we're talking to 70 years in the future, for those listening, trying to figure out what Dave and I are rambling about, we're trying to explain to people in the future what it's like to live through this. This is politics in America today. Now, you can make an argument it's always been this way, and it probably has to a certain degree, but it seems to me it's way more sinister now than it was 40 years ago, 50 years ago. I could be naive. Maybe it's not. Maybe this is just how politics works and has for 2,000 years. I don't know. but they knew all this stuff about him. They kept it quiet.
Yeah.
They supported him, and he was bashing Trump and other people for not caring about women and not caring about victims and all that. All this stuff was known when he was making those speeches.
Yeah.
It was only when he got in the way of the party winning that they unleashed the hellhounds on him, and now he had to resign withdraw from the governor race, and then like 2 days later he resigned from Congress.
Yeah.
But this is how politics works in the United States now, where it's not even if you have good ideas or not. Like having good ideas is like so far down the list of priorities. It's absurd, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing that's really the thing that makes one believe in conspiracy theories is the fact that all of this was known and was kept under wraps for a long time. I mean, because it's amazing how things just start to come out around election season. Well, how many people knew about, all the things we're finding out right now about him are just horrific. I mean, just, one after another, after another, after another. And so that had to have been, well known. And how could that have been suppressed so thoroughly up until it was a useful thing to use? And, and he obviously believed that none of this was ever going to come out. He believed that he was going to be, protected by the machine, and he was protected by the machine until he got in the machine's way. So it's the blob.
Well, think about the things that did come out that didn't hurt him. He was like the Teflon Don. He slept with a Chinese spy.
Fang, yeah.
Yeah, Fang. Like, okay, that they tried to keep it, like the Republicans tried to keep that in the news for a few months, but they got no legs. It went away.
Yeah.
The mortgage fraud stuff. Again, they tried to keep it in the news. It got no legs. It went away. Only when the Democrat machine, and I'm sure there's an equally strong Republican machine or uniparty machine. Only when the Democrat machine was threatened did they come up with the real goods,
right?
Which was all this horrific stuff that they've obviously been keeping quiet for. So when you look at like the Epstein thing, like it's always the same story. Like these are degenerate people who are able to be kept in line, and that seems to be the priority, way above like good ideas and like good moral character and like it's a wonder we've survived 249 and a half years.
Well, I see. One would think that perhaps the people of the character of Eric Swallwell were not the average politician in the 80s. I don't believe, I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just naive, but I don't believe that Tip O'Neill and, in those, in that, I mean, there was always like Ted Kennedy and Chappaquiddick and, there was those things, of course. But in terms of your average politician being a serial rapist or something, I don't think that was the case in the 80s or in the 90s. I think that the standards have been, just the floodgates have been opened so wide that if somebody is a gifted speaker and they look the part, then they're going to be elevated as a media. And, again, it's back to my theory from our previous conversation that the media is is like one of the top things, because what does Swalwell have? I mean, he's not a rocket scientist. He's not a PhD, intellect, but he was speaking in past tense, a good speaker. He looks the part. He's got all of those kind of media cutout things, in his favor. And then he's done.
Yeah. I typed into an AI search engine while you were chatting there, because I agree with you mostly. It's rare exceptions that these sexual predators get caught.
Yeah.
Dennis Hastert was the Speaker of the House. He got taken down kind of for that, but he wasn't convicted of those sexual deviation, kind of predatory kind of things.
Sure.
He was it looks like he was taken down for some kind of hush money scheme, is what the AI thing is saying here. Right. But the judge flat out called him a serial child molester in the sentencing. But my point with looking this up is how many what percentage of the average Americans even remember Dennis Hastert's name?
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, yep. No, it's true. I suspect that I hope that my naivete is not truly naive, and that they're not fully populated with people like that in DC now. I have to believe. Just for sanity's sake, I have to believe.
By the way, Republican, and he was Speaker of the House from looks like 99 to 2007 or something like that.
Yep.
Again, but even that's more recent. I agree with you. Like the Tip O'Neills of the world. You got Ted Kennedy, you got John Kennedy. Like maybe you carve out the Kennedy family.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Just them.
And then you got Bill Clinton, of course, which
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's the same kind of category as the stuff we're hearing from Swalwell. Certainly he took advantage of a underling in his office and did horrible things, but maybe not quite the same thing as but I'm not even sure I understand all the Swalwell stuff. But the point is, the thing that is just pissing me off is this is the machine running things behind the scenes. We have this kind of this illusion that we're electing people because they have grand ideas and they're going to represent us well. It's no wonder that they fold as soon as they get there. It's no wonder, like, a week in, you're like, I don't even recognize the things you're saying because this is the campaign you ran on, the platforms and the priorities you said you had. And like 30 days in, you're back talking, or you're back walking walking all that stuff back.
Yeah.
Are they all under control like this? Can a normal person just not get elected anymore?
Well, I mean, a normal person can't get elected because of the money that's involved. I mean, if I ran for office, unless I have a rich friend, you want to back me? I don't unless there's a rich, pack behind you, you're not going to get to office to begin with. So that, segments the field by itself, and then add on top of that, those that will play the game. I don't think a regular person probably can get elected.
If you look at it strictly as an investment, like let's say you were going to take $1 million of your, what, I don't know, you got like $250 million in your retirement account. So let's not take a big part of it. Let's just take a small percentage of it. You were going to take $1 million out of your retirement fund and you were going to back a candidate. Well, with any investment, you have to address risk first, especially when you're talking about those kinds of money, right?
Yeah.
So wouldn't it be more likely you would get people that you could control, which would mean it'd be more likely as people who have these kind of skeletons in the closet because you want to protect your investment?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's as old as the Roman Empire. I mean, who patronage and graft. I mean, corruption.
Yeah. And then on the flip side of this, we have, at the same time as this machine is running things behind the scenes, you have a guy like what's his name, Nick Shirley, the guy who exposed the Somali daycare fraud in Minneapolis.
Yep.
Right. So he's moved to California to expose, I don't know, 10, 20-fold more corruption in California than he discovered in his weekend foray in Minneapolis.
Yeah, like half the state budget.
So what do they do in California? They proposed Bill AB 2624, excuse me. Bill is AB 2624. It's being called the Stop Nick Shirley Act.
Seriously?
Yeah, where they will, it's like you can get penalized for exposing stuff with like a $10,000 fine and a year in jail. So they're drafting legislation to block the exposure of the grift
corruption
and fraud and things like that. Like, we're going to put no effort into stopping the fraud. We're going to put all of our effort into raising taxes so we have more money and shutting people up.
I hadn't heard about that one. I mean, I guess it's not surprising because, again, if you think about what was known, I heard a statistic and I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something to the effect of the amount of fraud in California was somewhere near like half or a third of their state budget, like $100 billion or some, that starts to get to be some real money. I mean, that's kind of money the Elon Musk notices.
Between 100 billion and 250 billion, but who knows what's real? So I mean, who knows?
Well, And if it's at that level, and I think the state budget was something like 300 billion in discretionary for a year or something like that. So again, it must be known that must be known because you can't, misplace like, those are not rounding errors, right? I mean,
No.
so it must be known. So if it's known, then it's widespread, and then it's is the very definition of a conspiracy.
Right. So if you have the mechanics in place where this fraud is happening, it's rampant, I would say it's not the same thing, but it's similar in people want to protect that because they'll go to prison, right?
Sure, of
Just
course.
like the Swalwell thing.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You have people who maybe are introduced these donors and supporters of these campaigns through this grift.
Right.
They have dirt on them, so it's a safe investment.
Yep.
You put money in to get the guy, and you tell your friends, hey, we got a guy who can stay in line. We're going to support him to run for office. He might be a complete dirtbag, probably is, if he's
Right.
doing these nefarious things. That's the guy we're going to put our money in, not because he has good ideas, he's going to do a good job representing, but because we can make sure he stays focused on what we want.
Right.
And it's a safe investment. Like, it all makes sense if you just kind of take a half a step back and like look at, well, if you're going to put a $1 million or $100 million into a thing, you damn sure going to protect your risk.
Absolutely.
Well,
you bet.
What's the best way to do it with people? Like, blackmail.
You're hiring an employee. You just hire an employee and find somebody that is as corrupt as and has that over their head and can go to jail
Right.
if they do you wrong. Yeah, it's a staggering place to be, because I've always believed, there's always been waste, fraud, and abuse. That's always been around, and I've, 5%, 10%. I mean, that's horrible. 5%, 10% of a multi-trillion-dollar, budget. But if it's this widespread to the size of a double digits percentage of the California budget, and California is like the seventh largest, economy on the planet or something like that.
Yep.
I mean, it's too far gone. The fourth turning's got to come. It's got to, come quickly.
Yeah. Well, and again, this all makes sense why the fourth turning happens, because things get so far out of whack.
It's
because
impossible
the
to
priorities
fix.
are shifted so much.
Yeah.
It becomes so dysfunctional. I mean, I was looking, as of today, you and I recording this, the stock market hit an all-time high.
Yeah, I saw that.
The
Yeah.
S&P 500, I think the NASDAQ was within a couple points.
Everything except the Dow.
But the Dow didn't, but
Right.
the S&P did.
Yep.
Meanwhile, the cumulative inflation since January 2021 so cumulative inflation. So all the compounding inflations happened since January 2021. So
Sure.
little over 5 years.
Right.
Is between 23.6 and 27.1%, depending on which index we're using.
Wow.
Right. Now, in that same amount of time, if you get your 3 to 5% standard living pay increase, if you're a hourly employee, like, what's that compounding? I mean,
yeah,
third of that, half that, whatever, right?
Yeah, you're underwater so far. You're just going deeper and deeper.
So your buying power is completely underwater, and these billions or hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud is happening behind the scenes where the tax money is going.
Right.
It all makes perfect sense why it all comes unwound.
Yeah.
Like, at some point you can't squeeze people anymore.
Right. Well, and so the question is how. It's just a matter of time then. So the question is just a matter of time. Nothing more, nothing less. Just a matter of time. When does it collapse, and what is the triggering event? Is it when they put Trump in jail because we never get the Strait of Hormuz back online,
or we put boots on the ground in the Karg Island and do some bonehead thing over there, or we ram a Chinese ship on accident, or some fluky stupid Archduke of whatever his name was.
Yeah, Archduke Ferdinand. Yeah, right. Yeah, there you go. Well, there's where we're at. There's where we live, and that's the situation that I don't think anybody can unwind. I mean, that's the problem with it. You hope that it can be unwound when it crashes and somebody comes by with the good ideas, the gray leader, concept that exists in the fourth turning, of somebody that can come by and come on the scene once the whole thing collapses and can propose ideas but all of this stuff is also also necessary then to set it up for somebody to be like, oh, well, they're not corrupt. They're not on the take. They're not a serial rapist. Maybe they can fix our problems.
I don't think you never ever talked about this while we're recording. Can you just take a couple minutes to just explain the gray leader theory?
Sure. Well, in all of, and it's fascinating because this applies throughout all of human history, that when during a collapse and during a crisis, during a time of great turmoil, typically at these fourth turning types of scenarios, somebody emerges, somebody typically older, they're gray because they're gray haired, they're typically older, who is the person of the day, who is the one that can mobilize people, who can have a message that can be heard by the masses, that people will then follow and will abandon, regardless of whether or not they're, on this side or that side. The labels that they came with don't really matter anymore. So as an example, Roosevelt, when he was, obviously a Democrat, very socialist, but he was a great wartime president. He was the gray leader of that time, led us through as the wartime president, you would think in a very sort of Republican way, through a very difficult time. Abraham Lincoln was the actual first Republican, was the gray leader, was the person that came on the scene at just the right time. Now, you go throughout history. The fascinating thing is you go throughout history. I'm going to go way back. Moses was the great leader for the Israelites when they were in Egypt and when they were in slavery for 400 years and collapsed. You go through each of these turnings, these fourth turnings in history, when history is about ready to collapse, and all of a sudden somebody shows up that is going to save the day, and that's the great leader. It's fascinating. Right. I mean, why is it that this happens? I mean, I've thought about this, and I've listened to, of course, Neil Howe and Strauss before he passed away. But it's fascinating to think about how is it that things turn out so that the right person emerges, and what would happen if the right person didn't emerge? But they always seem to. They always seem to.
Yeah, and it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. Like Lincoln's a great example. If you looked at Lincoln 4 years before becoming president, you think there's what's the cat? Is it Kalshi? Is that the betting thing, or the what's the betting platform everyone refers to?
Oh yeah, right. Yes, yeah.
If you the Kalshi odds of Lincoln becoming president, like 4 years before, it'd be like 1/100%. Like
he
failed. Would pick this guy.
Exactly.
He failed at everything he did, and he was like a one-term congressman or something like that.
Yeah.
And he failed everything he'd done before that.
Right.
He lost his first 4 elections or some crazy thing like that. And he didn't have the demeanor as like a charismatic leader. He's kind of mopey and whatever, and
sullen.
Probably depression and Okay, well, you wouldn't have picked that guy. So the question is, was the man right for the situation, or did the situation create the man right for the situation?
Right. Yeah.
And that's kind of and it's similar with like you mentioned Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Plenty of folks thought he was just going to be a communist dictator, and to their
and that's where he was going.
He's going 4-term president.
Yeah, well, and that's where he was going. I mean, a lot of the stuff that he did before is like he's going down the Stalin-esque path, right?
Yeah, and Lincoln, as we've mentioned many times, he like threw out the Constitution when he had to. Like but people were enough people were okay with it, and they would abandon their tribe to get on board this because everything else was so broken they had no choice.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the gray leader is, and this is why I think people have a difficult time predicting who that's going to be, because I've been in a variety of these fourth turning discussion groups online, and I've gotten out of every one of them because they just turn out to be tribal places to say our guy is the great leader. So our guy's a great leader because he's gonna and the thing about the gray leader is you don't know he's the gray leader until he is the gray leader. I think,
or even only in hindsight, like at probably a year or two in, maybe even.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because he's not going to, he isn't set up to be, and he doesn't even know. I don't think the great leader really even knows that they're the great leader. They just happen to
I would
emerge.
Argue for Lincoln, you wouldn't be able to acknowledge him as the great leader until the Civil War ended, which was, 4 years into his, or 5 years into his presidency. Like that first few years, you're probably wondering, like, is this guy just making the problem worse, and the next person's gonna have to fix it? Like, you
Right.
didn't know until the actual end of the Civil War.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating to see how, and you might say that this is it's to plan because if we could predict who it was, well, maybe we'd have a different reaction to them than if we can't predict who it was. So it's completely unpredictable. So
Yeah.
could it be Trump? Could it be people? I remember in a few years back, one of these groups, one of the things got me to just jettison these groups is somebody said, "Oh, it's Biden. Biden's the gray leader." It was like,
No.
Biden's barely sentient at that point.
Yeah.
So, people
Yeah.
are going to make their predictions about who they think is going to be able to lead them out, but it's not there isn't a pathway other than the pathway to power. There's the pathway to power, but beyond that, that's all there is.
Yeah. Yeah. I certainly never thought it was Biden. Trump, I've gone back and forth on, and I'm back in the there's no way camp for him.
I don't see
There was
it.
about a 6 month, 12-month period. I was like, okay, well, maybe if he actually does some of these things, he's like, again, like, no, not getting another Middle East forever war, which appears like that's the path we're going
That's
down.
out of the
If he's able to break the mold,
right.
then I could totally see that. But he's not breaking the mold. He's becoming the mold.
Yeah.
So and I mean that in more than one way. Um, I couldn't tell you. I would say he's more likely to be looked at like Warren G. Harding than
Right.
than the gray leader. If you look at if only half of these things about the bets that have been made on the stock market and
Yeah.
oil futures and things like that, 6 minutes or 8 minutes or 12 minutes before he makes a key announcement, if only half those things are true, pretty compelling case. It's the most corrupt, financially corrupt administration maybe ever. But
Oh,
again,
yeah.
maybe all this stuff's happening all the time, and you and I are just, or I'm just not aware of it. Who knows? I don't know who the gray leader will be now,
Nope.
but I'm looking forward to it unfolding. Geez. And, well, speaking of which, there was a thing on, looks like it was on CNN where Ro Khanna and Marjorie Taylor Greene got together,
Really?
and they're talking about some kind of like, they're talking about all this middle ground that they found and things like that.
Oh, sure.
I think we are in store for a massive reshuffling of allegiances and alliances and things like that.
Yeah.
Are not going to be based on the traditional things that we've dealt with for the last 20 years.
Yeah, well, and that's certainly true. Now, there's been attempts at the purple. There's the purple party kind of thing where you're going to get the and I don't know. I look at those things kind of cynically. Ro Khanna and Marjorie Taylor Greene. I kind of look at that cynically too. It's like, well, now that they're out of, well, at least she is out of her, favored position. How does she remain relevant? Well, you got to do something really bold to remain relevant, and hook it up with Ro Khanna from the standpoint of politics. Your arch nemesis from before is a way to stay relevant. So I just don't.
I don't think
traction.
they'll be the ones that emerge to save the day, but I do think it's indicative that there is going to be a realignment, which I don't think they have a choice. The traditional left versus right model is not functional for a wide variety of reasons, not the least of which is all the behind the scenes corruption you and I talked about a half an hour ago. But
there's no doubt. There's the George Will version of conservatism is a 1980s 90s version that's gone. The Bill Clinton version of liberalism, that's gone. All of those things are gone, and now we are in a populist kind of anti-utopia, whatever an anti-utopia is.
Interesting you say Clinton. I want to hear you expand on that, because my thought has been that we actually will get back to a Clinton, because if you look at like the things that he said, his stances on things like immigration and all that kind of stuff, they're right-wing extremist positions now.
They are today, yeah.
Today, I think we're going to have to get back to more of that kind of we got to start addressing the needs of the 80%, not the 20% or 10% on either end of the spectrum, right?
Sure.
I've been kind of thinking we will get back to a Clinton thing. Why do you think that is out?
Well, I think of it in terms of, I look at Bill Clinton as the ultimate liberal. Right. And now, when he was also very pragmatic, there's no doubt, the era of big government is over, he said, and
Yeah.
it's the budget and, all that kind of stuff. So when I say that the Bill Clinton-esque kind of scenario is over, I'm talking about traditional liberalism, just like I'm talking about George Will as traditional conservatism. So now, getting to a point where both of those things, and both of those things have been abandoned now and they've been replaced by, progressivism, which is woke, and populism, right-wing populism, which is MAGA. So they've been replaced by these things. Neither of these things, both of those things, are transitional as well into, I think, what you're talking about. What you're talking about is the thing that follows on those things. It's two steps removed in my mind from George Will and from Bill Clinton. So it's more of you'd be hard pressed to say it'll be a combination of conservatism and liberalism and populism of some sort, with a sprinkling of who knows what, socialism or something.
Yeah. Last thing I want to ask you, going back to the global issue, there's speculation or rumors, or maybe it's even fact. I don't know for sure kind of where it lands on that spectrum, but that Russia is buying oil or supplying oil to somebody, but they're only using Chinese yuan for the exchange, for the payment. They're not using the petrodollar anymore.
Yeah.
It is, if the petrodollar unwinds, like, our whole system is like,
Sure.
We're not borrowing money, we're not having $39 trillion of debt in forever anymore.
Right.
Like, all that whole thing unwinds. Do you think that this is the beginning of something, or you think this is just a flash in the pan kind of a thing?
I don't think it is, and the reason the reason I don't think it is because it's too baked in. I mean, the petrodollar system is so baked in that, you can, around the fringes, around the edges, you can, so Russia and China are trading directly now, obviously, because they want to avoid us. But they're still, if they want to interact with the rest of the world, you've still got SWIFT, you've still got, the entire structure that's been built up since Bretton Woods. And so I don't think you're going to be able to unwind it easily. I think it's got to come crashing down. I think the only way it's going to go away is if it comes completely crashing down, and it wouldn't be replaced by, for instance, a BRICS kind of scenario. Nothing's going to slide. In other words, nothing's going to slide in its place. It's going to be, here we go, and then boom, it's completely exploded.
Right. And part of me is thinking, okay, if we continue to piss enough other countries off, why wouldn't they abandon that? What's in it for them to keep it, other than there's a system in place that's convenient because it's already in place? Other than convenience, what's in it for them to keep doing this? Like, why not trade with the Netherlands on the euro or whatever currency the Netherlands uses, or something like that?
The thing is, it's network effect. The problem is, unwinding network effect is not something you can want with all your heart, soul, and mind to unwind network effect, but actually doing it, actually putting into place something, a global network effect, is, I think it's an impossible thing to do. It's just like if you try to get, I remember arguing with people about, okay, we're gonna put carbon taxes in globally, right? You can't do it. It's not possible to get the entire world to align around this, just like that would be easy in comparison with unwinding the reserve currency petrodollar scenario, because it's so completely baked in to every transaction for the last half century. So it's the only way it's going to go away is if it blows up, because if they tried to unwind it, it's like, well, what happens? All their reserves, not all, but a significant portion of most countries' reserves are in U.S. dollars. I mean, you're not going to be able to call up and say, oh, I need some marks for this. I need some, yuan for this. I need some real for this. It's not going to be something that is, I think, possible to do.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm quite as rigid on that, partly because, China and other countries have been buying physical gold at a pace that we have not seen in decades.
Yep.
And again, I have no way to even conjure up what a replacement system would look like. But I got to imagine that it would, whatever it would be, each country would have to back it with gold to give it any meaning. Otherwise, it's just like, well, we're just going to say that the real is worth this, and we're going to say the dollar is worth that in comparison. There has to be something meaty behind it to back that up. And I don't think it's a coincidence that all these countries are buying, hundreds of metric tons of physical gold every month. I don't think that's a coincidence.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, but if you think about how much gold, if you think about how much precious metals, period, is in the world, compare that to the amount of fiat currency that's in the world. I don't think you can unwind fiat currency because you got, 10,000 times the amount of fiat currency versus the amount of precious metals. You would have to completely I mean, this is just my perception. It could be wrong, but I don't think it's possible to return to a physical standard without having a global depression. I don't.
Well, yeah, I don't know about the depression part. I mean, that's certainly on the table. There's no question.
Yeah.
I don't think it's me thinking he made plans. I think it's absolutely going to just like
blow
up, and
it'll blow up.
Just have to scrape together whatever they can, and
Yes.
gold will be a part of that or whatever.
Yes.
I don't think there's a.
Yeah.
I don't think the BRICS plan is going to. I don't think any of this. How do I say this? I don't think anything for the next 10 years is going to go the way anyone plans.
Exactly. Well, and that's my point. Yeah, that's exactly my point. I don't think you can unwind the system in a logical way to replace it with something else. I think the system will come completely crashing down, and we got to try and figure out how to make the best of it now that it's come completely crashing down.
And it seems to me that the system is broken such that it has to be fixed. And I don't think that we have the mental horsepower and ethics and character and goodwill and all of those components to do that. I think it has to come crashing down. And so the only question for me is it this fourth turning or the next one?
Right. Well, it sure as heck feels like it's this fourth turning, but I mean, you feel like it's bad until it gets worse. Right.
Right.
That's the scary part.
Well, what was it I think it was the last week you and I talked? I didn't mention this, I don't think, but I saved this thing that if I can't find it quickly, I'll move on. But the fear of, like, I can't remember how they phrase it. Dang it, that's gonna make me mad. Let me try to refresh this page. I did save it, but I can't remember what it's called, but it was like the overall fear index globally was at the highest it had ever been. Like the uncertainty about the future or something. I can't remember how they phrased it, but the uncertainty of the future or something like that was the highest it had ever been in recorded history or something like that. It was right. I'm not able to find it. I'll look it up for next time. But anyhow, it was right when we were on the verge of that. We were going to end we were going to end the Persian civilization.
Right.
Yes. That time where it was the highest amount of uncertainty or pessimism about the future for all things, not just financial, not just immigration or the statistics about the reproduction rates.
Demographics,
everything all in. It was the worst ever.
But that was last week.
That was last week, and so there's a million things that have happened since then. The last thing I'll end with is there's this chart I'm looking at that is the percentage of people in the U.S. Congress over the age of 70.
Oh, really?
Now, granted, our life expectancy has increased a lot since 1820 or whatever when this chart begins.
Sure.
But this goes back to 1800. Percentage of Congress over the age of 70, and like 1810, it was around 3%. Now, again, life expectancy back then was 50 or 60 compared to 80 or whatever it is now.
Right.
The peak was in 1960-ish, where about 12% of Congress was over 70. And now we're pushing 20%.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, because we had nothing to replace it with, right? I mean, so
because who needs new ideas, right?
Yeah,
just
exactly.
All the old stuff. It's obviously working, right?
It's working wonderfully.
Yeah. All right. Well, as Dave said in the beginning, if there's anything we got especially right or wrong, we'd love to hear your thoughts on that. We're trying to explain to future generations what it's like to live in this time, as they're undoubtedly going to look back and wonder what the hell is wrong with those people. And you can do that at Unsilent Podcast, or you can go to Rumble has a great comment section. And until next week, this is Dave and Brian signing off.
See you next week, hopefully.
Do you want to be Unsilent? Make your voice heard on our social media channels and share where you think we got it right or wrong. Go to unsilentpodcast.com for social links so you can join the discussion.